It's definitely unhinged. Why is that kind of hot? Yes? Yes. Hello, my book besties. Welcome back to my vlog channel. It's your girl, Haley Jean, and today I am back with another reading vlog. I am currently on the hunt to find enough dark romances so that I can do a full dark romance recommendation video. But if you know me and my reading tastes, I tend to be quite picky when it comes to the dark romances. I feel like a lot of dark romances tend to kind of romanticize sexual assault, and that is something that I really want to avoid. I'm looking for a romance that has dark themes such as violence, gore, crime, but where there is consent very prevalent in the story, and where the love interest does not do anything directly harmful to the other love interest. I've been on the hunt the past few months, and I've actually racked up a list of 4 dark romances that I would recommend, but I want to have a full 5. So I'm looking for one more to add to the list, and I thought I would bring you along on the journey while I read some dark romances and try to find one. Now, these are all dark romances that were recommended by you guys. I asked over on my Instagram for you to send over your dark romance recs that do not include CNC or dubious consent. And boy, did you deliver. So I have 3 books that I'm going to be reading for today's video. Let's talk about the TBR. First, we have Hooked by Emily McIntyre. This is a book that was sent to me, I think several months ago, by a subscriber named Avril. This is the first book in the Never After series, which is a series of a bunch of different dark fairy tale retellings where the villain gets the girl, but they're told as contemporary romances. This first one is a Peter Pan retelling called Hooked. He wants revenge, but he wants her more. James has always had one agenda: destroy his enemy, Peter Michaels. When Peter's 20-year-old daughter Wendy shows up in James's bar, he sees his way in. Seduce the girl and use her for his revenge. It's the perfect plan until things in James's organization begin to crumble. Suddenly, he has to find the traitor in his midst, and his plan for revenge gets murkier as James starts to see Wendy as more than just a pawn in his game. The next one that you recommended was Sinner by Sierra Simone. Now, I did already read Priest, which is the book that comes before this, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, pretty spicy, not much plot, but I gave it, I think, like a 3.5 stars. But I feel like this is definitely the fan favorite in the series. This is the one that all the girlies rave about, so I'm excited to see what I think about it. He leads a life of sin, and she's committed to a life of virtue. Sean Bell is not a good man, and he's never pretended to be. He doesn't believe in goodness, God, or any happy ending that isn't paid for in advance. There are words for men like him: a playboy, womanizer, skirt chaser, sinner. When he meets a gorgeous college girl at a fundraiser, he has no problem telling her exactly what filthy things he wants to do to her, until he realizes that she's his best friend's little sister, all grown up. And worse than that, she's about to become a nun. I do really like that Sierra Simone is not afraid to go there with religion and tackle that subject. That was also definitely discussed in Priest when I read that. I'm excited to get into this. This sounds quite juicy. And the third and final book on the TBR for this video is The Maddest Obsession by Danielle Laurie. This is the second book in the Maid series, but I'm just gonna read it as a standalone. I don't have any interest in reading the first book. Her dresses are too tight, her heels too tall. She laughs too loudly, eats without decorum, and mixes up most sayings in the book. Little do most know it's just a sparkly disguise, there to hide one panic attack at a time. Nobody can crack Gianna's facade. No one anyway, until he comes along. Most see a paragon of morality, a special agent upholding the law. In the New York underworld, others know him as a hustler, a killer, his nature as cold as a heart of ice in his chest. Christian Alistair has always followed the life plan he envisioned in his youth, beneath the harsh lights of a frigid, damp cell. With a proclivity for order and the number 3, he's never been tempted to veer off course, but perhaps one should never say never. Nowhere in Christian's plans did he ever prepare for Gianna. She's chaos embodied, not his type, and married, but none of that can stop his eyes from following her wherever she goes. All along, she doesn't even know that she's his frustration, his fascination, his maddest obsession. I'm here for the obsessed with a married woman trope. I'm here for the mess. Those are the 3 books that I have on the TBR for this video. I think I'm gonna start with Hooked, because I've had this one on my TBR for the longest. I am gonna get started. I'm gonna pick this up, and I will check in with you when I have some updates. Okay, hello dark romance reading vlog. I am here with my first update, my first check-in. I'm only 50 pages in and so much has already happened. I want to say, do not let the cover fool you. This is not a dark romantic-y kind of retelling. I think it's more of like a dark mafia underworld crime kind of retelling. Maybe not mafia. I'm pretty sure Hook is a drug dealer. Okay? Like, he's a criminal. Okay? You learn about Hook's past. His name is James Hook. He's from the UK, but his entire family was killed. I don't know how yet. We haven't figured that out. But afterwards, he travels over to the US to live with his uncle. His uncle seemed to be very abusive. And so when he was like 18, he killed his uncle and like escaped. And now he's some drug dealer kind of crime boss. He's kind of an apprentice to this other man named Rufus, who's kind of like his actual father figure. And it mentioned that James has been like kind of eyeing Wendy's father, Peter, since he was 11, but I don't know why. Maybe Peter worked with his uncle or something. I'm not 100% sure. He owns a pilot plane company called Never Air, and he wants to get in business with Rufus and Hook potentially to smuggle drugs through his planes, I think is kind of what's going on. But Hook has a vendetta out for Peter. And like right at the beginning, you see Hook torture one of Peter's like coworkers, buddies, I don't even know. You see him torture and murder him. You see him fantasize and pleasure himself to the thought of basically seducing Wendy and then killing her father and leaving her fatherless. You can tell he's messed up. Basically, we know that James Hook is a freak. He is a freak. I think Wendy's dad kind of tries to shield her from all the crime that he's secretly involved in, but one night Wendy's out with her friends and they go to a bar. And that is when Hook sees her for the first time in person and decides that he wants to try and seduce her to kind of get revenge on Peter. Now, even though Hook is very dark and twisted behind closed doors, when him and Wendy meet for the first time, it's a pretty normal interaction. You can tell he's like really flirting with her, but Wendy was not really interested, and I'm enjoying her character so far. She seems to be kind of feisty. She's not afraid to like talk back, which I enjoy. And after their first interaction, I just want to read you some of this passage. My heart slams against my ribs. Wendy Michaels. I know her, of course. The daughter of the man who I've been keeping tabs on since I was 11 years old. Still, I've never begrudged the offspring for the sins of their father. We're all byproducts of some evil. Some of us born into it and others created from circumstance. However, if the universe is placing her in my palms, the least I can do is handle her properly. My cock lengthens at the thought of driving inside her until she breaks, leaving wounds that scar with the reminder I was there, tarnishing her innocence, and then tossing her at her father's feet, a defiled version of the girl he bred. I'm just gonna roll with it for now. That's kind of where he's at. A gruesome image of me thrusting inside Wendy on top of his... I don't even know if I can read this. A gruesome image of me thrusting inside of Wendy on top of her father's remains, my cum dripping from between her thighs and mixing with the pool of blood beneath us, makes my cock jerk violently, a groan ripping from my throat as I palm my aching erection. It's a little bit unhinged. It's definitely unhinged. I'm gonna keep reading and we will see how it goes. Reading update, we are 75 pages into Hooked, and I'm learning a little bit more about Wendy and her backstory. Turns out that she actually is not that big of a fan of her dad either. Her mother died when she was pretty young, and so it's kind of just been her dad, and her little brother. When she was younger, she was used to her parents being around, kind of doting on her. And then after her mom died, her dad kind of just like threw himself into his work and doesn't really focus on anything else, doesn't really make time for his kids. And so now she feels abandoned and she feels like she has to raise her younger brother. I think Wendy is also kind of rebelling and going to this bar all the time and seeing this man that she knows is dangerous. She's heard rumors about. I think she's doing it kind of to spite her dad as well. So honestly, Wendy might not even be too upset about making her dad upset. She might actually be in on that plan. So maybe Hook should just tell her what he wants to do. But anyway, Hook has also gotten Wendy to agree to go on a date with him. So they are about to go on their first actual date, and we will see how it goes. I assume he's gonna act like a gentleman, because thus far he has acted like a pure gentleman in front of her, and he hasn't really shown any of his freak flag yet. So we will see how it goes. Okay, I just got to chapter 16, page 97. They just had their first date where Hook brought Wendy to his yacht. He like lives on a really nice yacht house boat thing. So they had a nice private dinner on the boat. And then he finger banged her, and by the end of the date, she's literally telling him that she's his. So I unfortunately am gonna have to classify this as insta-lust. Like, if you're banging and you're saying I'm yours on the first date, that's very insta-lust to me. And y'all know how I feel about insta-lust. It's really not my favorite, but I am gonna still try and finish the book just to see if I can rate it objectively. If I'm looking for dark romance recommendations, obviously there are going to be some readers who do not mind insta-lust and they're okay with that, so this could still end up being a potential recommendation just for the right reader. So I don't know, I'm still going to finish it, but I'm definitely not like swooning. Also, he keeps mentioning her innocence and how like he hopes that she's a virgin, which even Wendy mentions, like thinks to herself, she like thinks that it's weird, and I agree, it's weird. I don't like when heroes in books like talk a lot about virginity. It's like such a weird thing to do. So yeah, I might not be personally loving some of the tropes and things going on in this book, but I am gonna try and finish it. Okay, we discover why James hates Peter so much and why he's going after Wendy. It's because Hook's dad died coming home on a Nevair jet in like a plane crash. So he essentially blames Peter because that's his company. I'm glad that we finally cleared that up, because I'm gonna be honest, I've been reading this first 100 pages basically like, did I miss something? I was like, did we go over it? But no, that is the reason why he hates Peter and wants to defile Wendy, which again, okay. I am flying through this today. I'm pretty much reading most of it in one sitting, which is nice. I'm like almost halfway. I'm on page 143, so I'm like 45% of the way through. Hook just took Wendy's virginity. So yeah, they banged. Not even 40% of the way through. They've been on 2 dates and they're already banging. I don't know. It's very, very much too much insta-lust for me. I can see why people like this, and I can see why people recommended this to me, because obviously everything is consensual, which we love. The only like real red flag is that the whole like virginity thing, obviously that's a little weird that he's like into the fact that she's never done this before. Like, he likes that, which like, you're a grown man, why would you like that? I don't know. But then the other red flag is that he is obviously lying to her, because she brought up her dad, like in a conversation. I was like, oh yeah, my dad's also a businessman. He's pretty wealthy, but I didn't want you to like think any differently of me because of my dad. And he lies to her and says that he has no idea who her dad is, even though he fully well does. There's a little bit of drama, definitely some tension, but as for the romance, I just think like the insta-lust and the virginity is turning me personally off. Okay, I'm now on page 169. I may not be swooning over the romance much, but I will say the plot is very fast-paced and it's keeping me intrigued. Since we last spoke, a lot has changed. I would say right around the 50% mark. There's like a bunch of plot twists that get thrown at you. Rue is dead. He was murdered by Peter's men, so Hook is especially angry and especially wants Peter dead. Hook actually kidnapped Wendy because he, after seeing that Rue died, was like, Wendy's in on this, I guess. For some reason, he thought that maybe Wendy was like the distraction to kind of get information, and that's why Rue died. So Hook actually kidnaps her. Wait, that's kind of tea. That's kind of a plot twist that I wasn't really expecting. And now, of course, she's like, I had no idea that any of this was going on. Like, why did you kidnap me? Please, let me explain. Okay, Hook let Wendy out of the dungeon that she was caged up in to take her out to this, like, party event. But then, who shows up? Peter, her dad, and they have this big like confrontation, and Wendy realizes like basically her dad wasn't even looking for her, didn't care about her, whether she lived or died, like basically only cared about saving his business. So now they're kind of like teaming up together. I think they've decided that they want to work together to bring down her dad.
Do we have a smoke machine or something?
Yeah, I think we should have smoke coming up.
Hey, Tony,
Yeah, the wind kicks it back. We're gonna dump as much smoke as we can.
I've got like 100 pages left, so I think I'm going to just wind down for the evening, do my skincare, go to bed, read this before I fall asleep. But I will circle back with you tomorrow and let you know how the ending of this book goes and what my final rating is going to be. All right, I am here with my final thoughts and review for Hooked. I finished this, and I will say there definitely were some twists at the end that I wasn't expecting, and I liked the plot overall. Like the drug dealer wanting revenge, having some people on his team end up being traitors. Like, all of that drama was really interesting and fascinating to me. And I did enjoy the consent in this book. I knew that Wendy was comfortable and willing with everything that went on, but I just don't think I was swooning over this romance. I was really kind of icked out. The virginity trope, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, because apparently authors just want to keep including it in their books. And there was definitely insta-lust. I feel like from the second that James and Wendy see each other for the first time, they instantly want to bang. They're instantly lusting after each other. I can see why people would like this. I could recommend it to somebody for sure, but I think I would only want to recommend it to like the right person. I'm gonna give this 3 stars. I think we're just gonna meet in the middle. I think it's a pretty average dark romance, but unfortunately I don't think this is gonna go in the recommendation video. So we gotta keep searching, and that means we need to start our next read. I think I'm gonna pick up The Maddest Obsession by Daniel Laurie. We will see how this goes. I'll let you know once I have some thoughts. Okay, I'm about 50 pages into The Maddest Obsession, and I have some thoughts. We have met our 2 main characters, Gianna and Christian. Gianna is actually married to a rich kind of mafia man who is 25 years older than her. They had an arranged marriage for money. This book starts with flashbacks to the past, where Gianna discovers that her husband, Antonio, is cheating on her with her best friend. And so she is heartbroken, and she begins abusing drugs. And swiftly, you kind of see that she's definitely going down the road of like becoming a drug addict. And then you have Christian Allister. Christian, I guess, is somehow like in the mafia and involved in the criminal underworld, but he's also an FBI agent. I don't know. I typically don't enjoy like cop/federal agent romances. So if I knew that, I probably wouldn't have picked this up, but I'm just gonna roll with it. And kind of suspend my disbelief, but I guess he's a corrupt FBI agent, and he kind of works closely with Antonio, Gianna's husband, but he does not like Antonio. We also learn that Christian had some sort of childhood trauma that led to him having OCD, and he's currently in therapy right now, and they're talking about his OCD and how he's kind of like obsessed with things being clean. And he also gets really obsessed with things having to be in 3s. He has to do like everything in 3s. So I do like that both of our main characters have something that they're struggling with. You can tell like we're talking about kind of deep and heavy topics. But I will say I am really not liking the writing style. The writing style is very like flowery and a little bit convoluted and over the top. There's a lot of run-on sentences. There are some sentences that literally don't make sense, and I have to like go back and reread the paragraph because I'm like, what are we talking about? The 29-year-old and owner of this fine hotel laughed. Oh, the 29-year-old and owner. Like, what? The exchange was a blur of heat, the burn of liquor, a flicker of pitch black as his eyes dropped to Antonio's grip on my arm. And then it was gone, replaced with gold wallpaper as we walked down the hall toward the terrace. The exchange was replaced with gold paper? The exchange was replaced with gold wallpaper? Like, what are we I really just do think that there's something off about this writing style. I'm on chapter 5, and it is Gianna's birthday. It's a flashback to one of her birthday parties. And this is after she finds out that her husband has been cheating on her. So what does she do to get back at her husband? She hooks up with his stepson. And Christian, he finds out about that. And so they're at this birthday party, and he kind of makes a comment about like, oh, at least you're not keeping it in the family this time. And you can tell that like Christian does not like that Gianna hooked up with her stepson, but she has no interest in doing that again. And it seems like Nico, her stepson, also isn't interested. But anyway, they continue talking, and she's basically like, where's my birthday present? Like, it's my birthday. Did you bring me a gift? And she sees that he's wearing a Rolex on his wrist, and she's like, oh, what about the Rolex? And she starts to like unclasp his watch, and she's like expecting that he's gonna like yell at her or stop her, but he literally just lets her take his expensive ass watch off and put it on her wrist. And she's like, oh my gosh, thank you. And he just is like, you're welcome. He just gives it to her. Why is that kind of hot? JK, he took the watch back. And my pussy is dry again. We've tried so hard and come so far. In the end, It doesn't even matter. I won't be sorry when I DNF this book. You guys, I hate to do it. But I fear that I just need to own it like a badge of pride. I am the DNF queen. Is it a Haley Jean reading vlog if I don't DNF like at one of the books?
If you are not completely satisfied, well, hey, neither am I.
I cannot get behind this writing style. I just can't. It is flowery, but not in a way that works. I feel like there are a lot of run-on sentences and like grammatical errors. Who is the subject of the verb, of the predicate? Like, we need to take a grammar course, I fear. But also, Alistair as a character is just so unbelievable. Like, I don't understand how you're an FBI agent, yet you will just like murder a man in cold blood and leave his body there and all the evidence for some random woman to clean up. Like, what FBI agent? It just doesn't make any sense. It's just like, okay, this is a little bit too out of the realm of believability for me personally, but mostly it's the writing. That was what I was struggling with the most. And so I went on Goodreads and I was reading some of the like 1, 2, 3-star reviews to see if anyone else was complaining about the writing. And there were a few people, but mostly what I found out is that apparently this author is a very big Trumpy and was liking some very questionable things on Twitter and following some very questionable people in like 2020, 2021. I missed the memo on that. So that's even better reason for me to DNF this, because I don't really need to support a Trumpy anyway. So yeah, I unfortunately am going to DNF Maddest Obsession, but that brings us to our third and final book for this reading vlog. And I'm actually really excited. I think this is the one that I have the most hope for. It is Sinner by Sierra Simone.
I've made a decision. I'm gonna become a nun.
I do really love the pink cover. It matches my Chapel Roan bookmark. Obsessed with the vibes that we've created in the studio today. So yeah, I'm gonna start this, see how it goes, and I will catch up with you when I have some updates. Hello Dark Romance reading vlog. It's your girl, we're finally back. It has been a few days since my last check-in, but I took a little bit of a dark romance break. I read some nonfiction books, listened to some audiobooks, but I have started the next book for this video. I am currently reading Sinner by Sierra Simone on my Kobo. This was a gift that I got for my birthday this past weekend. I turned 25 and my fiance got me a Kobo. I've been wanting a colored e-reader ever since this came out and like got announced. So yeah, I've been testing her out. This is the first book that I've read on it and I'm really enjoying it so far. The Kobo. I'm only like 10% into the book, so I don't really know how to feel yet. We're mostly meeting Sean Bell, the MMC. He is a very wealthy businessman, and he's like a womanizer, kind of a bachelor player. He's blonde, not really usually my typical type. I feel like I can already sense that we're gonna get some character development, so I'm not turned off. I'm still sad, but he met our love interest out at an event and she gave him a fake name. She said her name was Mary. I don't think that's her real name. They've had like one interaction. She's like 21, so she's very young, still in college, and he is 36. And so right off the bat, like he sees her from behind at this party and she's wearing like a red dress and he's like, wow, she is hot. Like, who is that woman? Let me go over there. And he starts flirting with her and then he realizes like, oh my gosh, you're very young. Like, how old are you? And she's like, I'm 21. He was like, I was gonna buy you a drink, but like I am too old to be buying you a drink. And she is the one that's kind of like, no, like go get me a drink. And so he gets her a drink, they start flirting, whatever. It gets kind of steamy right away, but then he instantly gets a call because his mother is currently battling cancer and she's like had to be taken to the ER because something's gone wrong. She needs to have like an emergency surgery. So right when they're about to like kiss for the first time, it's kind of getting steamy on this like one night. He leaves to go be with his family. We learn more about his backstory. We do get to see glimpses of Tyler, who was the MMC in Priest, the first book. But you could definitely read this as a standalone. Like, I read Priest, but even if I didn't, I would understand everything that's going on. They give you enough backstory about Tyler and like his life. And I want to see how the like reformed playboy trope is going to play out in this book. But I'm really liking Mary, the FMC. I think she's really interesting. She's a black woman who is in college and like goes to parties and is out drinking, but is going to become a nun, which is like interesting. Like, I want to know more about her. And I like that she instantly calls out Sean. Like, when he starts trying to brag about his job or his money, she's like, oh, you're preening. Like, you're trying to show off. Like, that's not going to work with me. I think you need to be honest. Like, I like an honest guy. And so I like that she's She's giving a little bit of feistiness. I like her energy. I want to know more about her. I'm going to keep reading. I'll let you know how it goes. Okay, I am currently 80 pages into Sinner by Sierra Simone, and I gotta say, I really like the different character types. On one hand, you have Zenny, who is on her way to becoming a nun. She is currently a postulant, and she's pretty young, still has so many things to experience in life. And then you have Sean, who is in his 30s, and for the first time, he's really starting to care about a woman in a way that he never has let himself before. I think I'm struggling because apparently, he has known Zenny since she was a baby. He is Elijah's little sister, and Elijah is his best friend. Elijah and Zenny are both black. Elijah is queer, so I am really enjoying that you get representation in this book that you don't get in a lot of really popular, like, book talk books. But anyway, there's, like, a significant age gap. It's best friend's little sister trope. They haven't seen each other in, like, 10 years. So I think it's okay. You know, it's, like, a lot has changed from when you're, like, 7 years old to by the time you're 21, but it's still just like a little bit iffy, and especially because Sean keeps bringing it up. I'm hard and aching over Zenny Iverson, someone I held as a baby.
That's weird.
Someone I'm supposed to keep safe, someone far too fucking young and also consumed with a faith I have spent my entire adult life rejecting. So it's like, on one hand, I really like that. Like, he is super against the church and religion. I kind of find myself feeling very similarly to Sean in this book. Like, me and him relate on religious trauma. His sister was abused by a priest or a nun. I don't forget exactly, but she ended up committing suicide. So that's really, really dark. And so he kind of hates the church. And the fact that Zenny is a nun is really conflicting for him. And on that level, he still really cares about her. And that's kind of conflicting for him. And that is so interesting. But the lust and like the horniness and like thinking about her being a baby while you're jerking off is just not my vibe, really. I'm feeling kind of conflicted at this point in the book. But I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna let myself go with the punches because it's dark romance. It's supposed to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, you know? And so far, everything is very consensual. Zenny is into it. She wants Sean. She is fully, like, there for it. She's teasing him. She's asking him for it. So from Zenny's perspective, I feel fine. But I forgot to mention, actually, this book is in Sean's perspective only. I wish Sierra Simone wrote this series in dual POV because I forgot that Priest was the same way. And I think for me, I just prefer for a romance book to be in the perspective of our FMC rather than the MMC. But I do think it's a really unique twist. And so it's kind of cool. Again, I can see why people would like it. Yeah, you're only in Sean's head this entire book. And, but you can tell, like, Zenny is very verbal about her consent and how she feels about Sean. But if we got her perspective, I think I would like it even more. I think that would maybe even like bump it up a star rating maybe. That's where we're at, 80 pages in. That's my kind of first impressions about the setup. It is very spicy. So if you don't like spice, you don't want a spicy read, you don't want it to kind of be lusty from the beginning, I would not pick this up. But I'm kind of going into it knowing that it's going to be spicy, so I'm fine with it. In Sean's inner monologue, he keeps referring to Zenny's vagine as the secret place, the most secret place. And that's just like not sexy. I don't know. The way that some of the smut is written is not sexy, and then other parts are sexy. So it's I'm conflicted. I'm feeling torn in two. I just discovered that Jacob Morgan, one of my favorite audiobook narrators, is the narrator of this. So I think I'm actually going to switch and start listening to the audiobook instead of reading it physically. Maybe the smut, like the writing doesn't hit that good, but if Jacob Morgan reads it to me with his sexy voice, maybe it'll work better. I used one of my credits on Everand and I'm going to listen from here on out. I'm on chapter 8. So Okay, I am making my progress through the Sinner audiobook. I am currently halfway through the book, so I wanted to give you the updates that I wrote down in my notes. Zenny approaches Sean with a proposition because her basically mentor nun, like the nun above her, thinks that she's a bit too young and a bit too inexperienced to be ready to dedicate her life to God. Like, how do you know that you won't be missing out on anything, basically? And she kind of encourages Zenny to go and explore before she starts her provocation or whatever it's called. So on pages 88 and 91, she asks if Sean will help her do that for the month. First, Sean declines Zenny's offer because he's like, I'm just too old for you. This is too inappropriate. This is too dirty. Like, he's just feeling some type of way. So he calls his brother Tyler, and Tyler actually kind of puts him in his place. And I really liked that conversation. Tyler calls out Sean for viewing sex as something like dirty and sinful. And he reminds Sean that Zenny can make her own choices and that she's like a consenting adult. So after that, and after a few more conversations and just Zenny's persuasion, Sean eventually agrees, and he's gonna do the deal, and him and Zenny are gonna just go at it like rabbits for the next month. But before anything begins in the bedroom, Sean and Zenny sit down. They have their first like dinner date kind of thing, and they talk about everything. They talk about consent, they talk about safe words, they talk about boundaries, and it was lovely. I loved that they included that scene, and Sierra Simone like understands how important and sexy consent can be. They even have a really refreshing conversation about virginity that I loved. Zenny, I need to know as we move forward, are you a virgin? She blinks up at the ceiling. Sort of? Explain sort of. Well, I do feel like I should mention that I think virginity in general is an arbitrary construct designed by men as a system of control and fear. Yes! Yes. And it's heteronormative. Because why do certain sexual acts preserve virginity and some destroy it? What if I fucked a dildo every night, but I hadn't fucked a man? Why does anal sex not count? And what if I was with someone and penetration was not an option for a number of biological or emotional or identity reasons? Would that make our sex less somehow? I'd be a virgin forever. And at this point, I was like, oh my, like this, I loved everything about this. Like, this is not the shit that you typically get in romance. So, period, Sierra Simone. I applaud you. But for the purposes of our conversation, it means that I had a boyfriend in high school and I decided to try intercourse with him. I changed my mind in the middle of the act. He stopped, and that was it. So I loved that they had that conversation about virginity. I love that they talked about that because we keep using it as like a kind of sexual term, like in foreplay. But if we would not have had that conversation, I would have been too icked out, I think. So I really do think that Sierra Simone is making me ride the line of like what I like and what's maybe like a little too taboo for me. And I think that's the point of a taboo romance. So snap, snap, snaps. I loved that conversation. Sean also has a boundary that he wants to set where he decides that he is not going to finish, or he's not going to finish by the hand of Zenny. He wants it to be very clear that he is doing this to help Zenny and not for his own personal pleasure and the gains. And I think it can be so hot to see a man like withhold his own pleasure to make sure that the woman is satisfied. Like the fact that Sierra Simone gets that, the fact that she's implementing that, like it's sexy. There was like a whole conversation chapter where they went over everything, and I really haven't seen that since like I read Harley LaRue, and that's one of my favorite dark romance authors. So Sierra Simone, period. I'm a little bit further in now, and Sean and Zenny have actually began their sexual relationship, and it is very steamy. Some of the dirty talk is hitting, some of it's not hitting. It really is just personal preference, I think, at the end of the day. But I will say this book is spicy as shit. But I think that there's enough plot and enough basis behind it to where I'm like, I'm fine with the insta-lust. I'm fine with the excess of spice. But yeah, I just want to say that the spice is on like a 9 out of 10 scale. Every other scene is essentially a spice scene, and so some of them are going for like 3 chapters. So if you want something that's really spicy but also has a plot and discusses darker themes and subjects, like, all right, I can see why people would enjoy this. But I'm gonna go finish reading, and I will let you know once I finished. It has been several hours and I'm still sitting in the exact same spot. I've transitioned to the physical book, but I'm just about to finish Sinner. I'm on chapter 30. We met some feminist nuns who refer to their god as she, which I stan. I loved that. We're getting some pretty unfortunate scenes with Sean and his mother. I did not think Mountain Dew could make me cry. Oh my god. I really didn't. I'm actually shocked. Like, I did not think I was going to like this book when I first picked it up, if you would have told me by the first few chapters. And that is why you got to give it a little more time. Can't judge a book by its cover. Both Zenny and Sean especially are proving me wrong. I'm really, really loving them both as characters a lot. And I'm rooting for their romance. And yeah, I mean, is this book 50% smut? Yes. It's a little bit too smutty for me, but I'm still really enjoying it. I'm crying. What the fuck? Oh my gosh. I understand this cover now. The scene in the rain. Oh my god, what the fuck? I'm sorry I wanted you to choose me, but have you ever seen yourself, heard yourself? How could I ever want any different when you are who you are? Okay, hello my book besties. It is the next day. I have fully finished Sinner. I've come to term with my rating and my review, so let's chat. Did I enjoy everything about this book? No. Did this book push me out of my comfort zone? Yes. Do I think that that's the point of a dark romance? Yes. And by the end of it, did I ship our main couple, Sean and Zenny? Abso-fucking-lutely. So, I think that being said, I think this was a very successful dark romance. I'm gonna give it a 3.75 star, but I am so pleasantly surprised at how much I ended up enjoying this by the end. If I would have DNF'd this at the beginning, I would have missed out on such a really good romance. I'm definitely not into everything that Zenny is into in the bedroom, but everything in this book was fully consensual, and you could tell that it was Zenny wanting it and going for it. And Sean was so good at like respecting her boundaries and almost even holding himself back as well, just to make sure that she was safe. He really was a pretty fucking good book boyfriend, if I do say so myself. So yay, I am so happy. This was a successful reading vlog. I would definitely add this to my dark romance recommendations list. Let's quickly do a recap of all 3 books that we read. Obviously, Sinner, 3.75 stars. I do recommend. Then we have Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I gave this a 2.75 star. I just don't think it was that memorable. I definitely wasn't swooning for this couple as much. And last but not least, we have The Maddest Obsession by Danielle Laurie, my DNF for this vlog. Just could not get into this writing style at all. But those are the 3 books that you guys recommended that I check out for this reading vlog. Thank you so much for sending in your recommendations. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this vlog, if you like when I include like full spoilers and I just talk about whatever, or if in the future you prefer to see like spoiler-free reading vlogs, just let me know. I personally like watching spoiler reading vlogs. I want people to like really go in and talk about specific scenes and moments, but I'm not sure what you prefer. Let me know. If you enjoyed this reading vlog, make sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully I'll see you in my next one. I'm actually working on another one right now that you should see in like a week or 2, kind of in a completely different direction than dark romance. So stay tuned. I'm sending you lots of love and light. Bye guys.